Have you ever noticed how we talk about greatness? We use words like climb, reach, achieve, as if greatness exists somewhere above us, waiting to be seized through sheer force of will. We imagine a mountain we must conquer, a summit we must reach. And so we push ourselves, day after day, climbing higher and higher toward that elusive peak of success. But what if I told you that this very climb, this relentless pursuit of greatness, might be the thing slowly eroding your life? What if the path you're on, the one that promises fulfillment and meaning at some distant summit, is actually leading you further away from the life you truly want? Let's meet Alex. Alex wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning before the sun has even considered rising. The alarm blares, and immediately, a familiar weight settles on his chest. A mixture of dread and determination. There are emails to answer, projects to complete, goals to achieve, no time for breakfast. That's for people who aren't serious about success. He'll grab coffee on the way to the office, where he'll spend the next 12 hours pushing himself to exceed expectations. Alex has a shelf full of books with titles like Extreme Productivity, The 5 a.m. Club, and Hustle Harder. He follows all the right influencers on social media, the ones who post quotes like, "While you were sleeping, I was grinding," superimposed over images of luxury cars and exotic vacations. His phone is filled with productivity apps that track his every minute, ensuring not a second is wasted. Sacrifice today for a better tomorrow, Alex tells himself as he cancels dinner plans with friends. Again. No pain, no gain, he mutters as he ignores his body's pleas for rest. "I'll sleep when I'm dead," he jokes to concerned family members who rarely see him anymore. But here's the question we need to ask. Is Alex actually on the path to greatness? Or is he unknowingly destroying his life in pursuit of an illusion? The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements, if it were all well invested." Yet most of us, like Alex, live as if the opposite were true, as if life were infinitely long for accumulating material success, but too short for genuine living. Our modern conception of greatness is relatively new. For most of human history, a good life wasn't defined by extraordinary achievement or relentless productivity. It was measured by different standards: wisdom, virtue, meaningful relationships, contribution to one's community. Somewhere along the way, we've conflated greatness with a very specific kind of success, one that's visible, measurable, and often materialistic. Consider how we've mythologized the stories of successful people. We hear about Elon Musk working 120-hour weeks, or Steve Jobs driving his teams to exhaustion to meet impossible deadlines. We celebrate athletes who train through injuries and entrepreneurs who sacrifice everything for their companies. No one ever changed the world working 40 hours a week, we're told. But these narratives, inspiring as they may seem, reveal a troubling assumption: that greatness demands the sacrifice of everything else that makes life worth living. Let's return to Alex for a moment. Last week, he missed his daughter's school play to finish a presentation. Yesterday, he ignored persistent chest pain because he couldn't spare the time for a doctor's appointment. His marriage is strained, his friendships have withered, and despite his professional achievements, he feels a persistent emptiness that no promotion seems to fill. But that's just what it takes, you might say. Greatness requires sacrifice. Does it, though? Or have we been sold a destructive myth that serves interests other than our own? Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, observed that success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Yet our culture has inverted this wisdom, suggesting that greatness is something to be chased, hunted, and captured, often at the expense of our well-being. There's a darker truth we need to confront. The conventional path to greatness isn't just potentially harmful to us as individuals. It's designed to be. Our economic system thrives on our relentless productivity, our endless consumption, our fear of falling behind. It benefits from our insecurities, our status anxiety, our willingness to sacrifice our health and relationships for professional advancement. Think about it. Who profits when you believe you need to work longer hours? Who benefits when you're convinced that happiness lies in the next promotion, the next purchase, the next achievement? When you're too exhausted to question the systems that keep you running on this hamster wheel of never-ending striving? The writer Charles Bukowski put it bluntly, how in the hell could a man enjoy being awakened at 6:30 a.m. by an alarm clock, leap out of bed, dress, force feed, brush teeth and hair, and fight traffic to get to a place where essentially you made lots of money for somebody else and were asked to be grateful for the opportunity to do so? But perhaps the most insidious aspect of this path to greatness is how it distorts our relationship with time. We're encouraged to sacrifice our present for a future that never quite arrives. I'll be happy when becomes our mantra. I'll be happy when I get that promotion, when I reach that income level, when I achieve that goal. In his book, 4,000 Weeks, Oliver Burkeman points out that the average human lifespan is merely 4,000 weeks. It's a sobering reminder of just how finite our time is. Yet we live as if we have endless time to postpone the things that truly matter to us. Roman Krznaric, a philosopher who studies long-term thinking, describes this as the tyranny of the now. Our tendency to discount our future selves in favor of immediate gratification or achievement. But there's an equally dangerous trap, what we might call the tyranny of the later. The belief that life happens in the future, not the present. Before we go further, let me be clear. I'm not suggesting that ambition is inherently problematic or that striving for excellence is harmful. Human achievement has advanced medicine, technology, art, and countless other fields that enhance our lives. The issue isn't with achievement itself, but with how we pursue it and how we define it. So what's the alternative? If the conventional path to greatness is destroying our lives, what path should we take instead? Perhaps we need to reimagine greatness altogether. Let's consider Sarah. Like Alex, Sarah is ambitious and hardworking. She has goals and dreams, but Sarah approaches her path differently. Sarah wakes up at 6:30 a.m., not because some productivity guru told her that's what successful people do, but because that schedule works for her natural rhythms. She starts her day with a brief meditation, not to optimize her performance, but to ground herself in the present moment. At work, Sarah pursues excellence not out of a desperate need to prove her worth, but from a genuine interest in her field and a desire to contribute meaningfully. She works diligently during her hours at the office, but protects her boundaries when work threatens to encroach on other aspects of her life. Sarah doesn't see rest as a necessary evil or a sign of weakness, but as an essential component of a well-lived life. She cultivates friendships, not as networking opportunities, but as sources of genuine connection. She pursues hobbies not because they'll look good on her resume, but because they bring her joy and fulfillment. Most importantly, Sarah doesn't postpone her life until some future achievement. She recognizes that her life is happening now in each moment and treats it with the reverence it deserves. Is Sarah on the path to greatness? By conventional standards, maybe not. She may never become a CEO or amass extraordinary wealth. Her name might not appear in history books or business magazines, but perhaps Sarah is pursuing a different kind of greatness. One that's harder to measure, but ultimately more fulfilling. A greatness that's less about climbing to a summit and more about walking a path with integrity, purpose, and presence. The ancient Greeks had a concept called eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or well-being, but more accurately understood as human flourishing or living well. Aristotle believed that eudaimonia was the highest human good achievable through the cultivation of virtue and excellence in being human. Notice what's missing from this definition. There's no mention of status, wealth, or professional achievements. Greatness, in the Aristotelian sense, is about excellence in being human, not excellence in producing, consuming, or accumulating. As the philosopher Alain de Botton observed, a good life is not one immune to suffering, but one in which suffering is actively transformed into a more authentic state of being. This transformation doesn't happen through relentless productivity or the pursuit of status. It happens through reflection, connection, and engagement with the full spectrum of human experience. But changing our approach to greatness isn't just about individual choices. It requires questioning the cultural narratives and systems that shape our aspirations and behaviors. Consider how we glorify hustle culture and celebrate those who sacrifice everything for professional success. Consider how rarely we discuss the costs of ambition, the broken relationships, the neglected health, the deferred lives. Consider how we've normalized exhaustion as a status symbol and busyness as a proxy for importance. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han, in his book The Burnout Society, argues that we've moved from an obedience society where external powers dictate our behavior to an achievement society where we internalize the demand for performance and become our own taskmasters. The achievement subject exploits itself until it burns out, he writes. The violence of positivity is not a privative, but a saturative, not an exclusive, but an exhaustive violence. In other words, we've become our own oppressors, driving ourselves toward burnout in the name of achievement and success. So how do we break free from this self-destructive path to greatness? How do we find a more sustainable, fulfilling approach to excellence and achievement? First, we need to reconsider how we measure success. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, known for his hierarchy of needs, observed later in his life that self-actualization, often seen as the pinnacle of human achievement, wasn't the highest level of development. Above it, he placed self-transcendence, the pursuit of something beyond oneself, whether through service to others, connection to nature, or engagement with something greater than individual achievement. This suggests that true greatness might be found not in what we accomplish for ourselves, but in how we contribute to something larger than ourselves. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Second, we need to reintegrate rest and leisure into our conception of a well-lived life. The ancient Greeks didn't see leisure as mere idleness or recovery time for more work. They saw it as essential for human flourishing and the development of wisdom. Joseph Piper, in his book Leisure, the Basis of Culture, argues that leisure is not the absence of activity, but a different kind of activity, one characterized by receptivity, contemplation, and celebration. True leisure, he suggests, is necessary for cultural development and human dignity. Instead of seeing rest as a necessary evil that enables more productivity, we might see it as an intrinsic good, a space for reflection, connection, and the cultivation of wisdom. Third, we need to reconnect with the present moment. The path to conventional greatness keeps our focus firmly on the future, on goals to be achieved, milestones to be reached, rewards to be earned. But life happens only in the present. The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, known for his research on flow states, found that people report the greatest satisfaction not when they're relaxing or being entertained, but when they're fully engaged in challenging activities that match their skill level. Such engagement isn't about future achievements, but about full presence in the current experience. This doesn't mean abandoning all long-term planning or ambition. Rather, it means approaching our goals differently, not as distant summits that will finally bring fulfillment when reached, but as directions that give meaning and purpose to our journey in the present. As the Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh put it, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. Fourth, we need to cultivate what philosopher Martha Nussbaum calls capabilities, the real freedoms and opportunities available to people to live the kind of lives they value. These include physical health, emotional well-being, social connections, and creative expression. True greatness might be measured not by our achievements in a narrow domain, but by our development across multiple dimensions of human experience. Not by how high we climb on a single ladder, but by how richly and fully we engage with the many aspects of a meaningful life. The writer and civil rights activist James Baldwin once said, "You cannot fix what you will not face." Perhaps it's time we faced the destructive nature of our conventional path to greatness and began imagining alternatives. Let's return to Alex, our ambitious striver from earlier. Imagine Alex has a realization. One night, working late at the office, he comes across a quote from philosopher Alan Watts. "This is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play." Something clicks for Alex. He begins to question the path he's been on and the toll it's taking. He starts making small changes. He sets boundaries around his work hours. He reconnects with old friends. He attends his daughter's school events. He schedules that doctor's appointment. These changes aren't dramatic renunciations of ambition or achievement. Alex still works hard. He still pursues excellence. But he does so from a different place. Not from desperate striving or fear of inadequacy, but from genuine engagement and a broader vision of what constitutes a successful life. Over time, Alex discovers something surprising. His work actually improves. Without the chronic stress and exhaustion, his creativity flourishes. His relationships with colleagues deepen. His decisions become more thoughtful and strategic. He finds himself more present, more focused, more alive. Is Alex still on the path to greatness? It depends on how you define it. By conventional standards, his path might seem less impressive. He's no longer the first one in the office and the last one to leave. He doesn't boast about how little sleep he gets or how many weekends he sacrifices for work. But by a deeper, more meaningful standard, Alex might be closer to true greatness than ever before. A greatness characterized not by external markers of success, but by internal qualities of wisdom, integrity, and presence. Writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau famously went to the woods at Walden Pond to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. His concern that we might reach the end of our lives and realize we never truly lived remains as relevant today as it was in the 19th century, perhaps even more so, given the increased pace and pressure of contemporary life. The conventional path to greatness promises fulfillment at some future summit. But what if true greatness isn't waiting at the top of a mountain? What if it's available to us here and now, in how we walk our path each day? As the poet Mary Oliver asked, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" The question isn't about what you plan to achieve, but about how you plan to live. This isn't a call to abandon ambition or excellence. It's an invitation to pursue them differently, not from a place of lack or fear or conformity to external standards, but from a place of wholeness, presence, and authentic purpose. It's a reminder that the path to greatness isn't separate from life itself. Every step on that path is part of your life, deserving of your full attention and engagement. Every moment spent striving towards some future achievement is a moment of your finite, precious life. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." Perhaps true greatness lies not in forcing ourselves along a predetermined path, but in listening deeply to what genuinely calls to us and following that call with courage and integrity. Consider this possibility. What if the path to greatness isn't about reaching a destination at all? What if it's about how we travel, who we become along the way, and the impact we have on those around us? As you go about your day, I invite you to pause and ask yourself, is my pursuit of greatness enhancing my life or diminishing it? Am I postponing my life for some future achievement or am I living fully in the present moment? Am I defining success on my own terms, or am I chasing someone else's definition of greatness? Remember, you don't have to choose between achievement and well-being, between excellence and presence, between ambition and joy. The truest form of greatness embraces all of these dimensions, creating a life that is not just impressive from the outside, but deeply fulfilling from within. Perhaps the most revolutionary act in our achievement-obsessed culture is to reclaim our right to define greatness for ourselves, to measure our lives not by external metrics of success, but by the depth of our engagement, the quality of our relationships, and the authenticity of our contributions to the world. As Albert Einstein wisely noted, try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. In that shift from success to value, from achievement to contribution, we might discover a path to greatness that doesn't destroy our lives, but enriches them beyond measure.